Welcome to Global View. Today we have a very special guest, someone you have seen on Newsmax, on the Joe Pags talk show, on the Save America podcast with Kay Smithe here. He's a writer, a social scientist, and at work is focused on avoiding the apocalypse. Well, I will start with that. Welcome to the show, Kay.
Thank you guys so much for having me. This is so much fun. I love being able to do shows with my friends. So this is such a blessing. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's gonna be hard to talk about how much the world is falling apart when, we're in such great company.
Well, yeah, last time we were in a beautiful gathering in LA, and now here we are connecting to two different states. I'm still now I'm back in Europe, but you are in South Carolina, and I think you have a lot to tell about saving America, and because it was your call, the very first time you stepped into the United States, your call was to save the United States. What did you see coming in the United States that you want absolutely to avoid?
Well, I think it's like the same kind of stuff that you guys see every day, right? So my work is really focused on the more like social science side of things, like trend forecasting, looking at what kind of repeated behaviors are becoming a problem, and then also looking at the policies that allow for negative long-term effects. So isn't that crazy? Like the last time, I think it was right around COVID, we were together in Los Angeles at that beautiful gala with Dr. Drew and all those other amazing people. We were really focused at looking at, it was crazy, like we were going through COVID, but we were really looking at the homeless crisis and how Gavin Newsom, and then, from sort of like him being the governor of California all the way down to even just like the local level politicians, just instituting these policies that not only enabled all of these people from across America to just move to California to just do drugs and die on the street, but also to kind of bring in that like real criminal element that goes hand in hand with addiction, but also with drug trafficking that begets human trafficking and so on and so forth. Like really just all these policies that led to just the complete degradation of basically every Californian city. And I think I remember us talking about it back then saying, oh my goodness, I really hope this doesn't go to every other blue liberal state. And now it has, and we've seen it everywhere. And so I now live in like rural North Carolina, middle of nowhere, because I just had to get out of the cities. I just was so scared that the stupid, most like ignorant and evil people in politics were going to win. And, sadly, on the local level, a lot of them do because they're backed by people like George Soros, who gives them a lot of money to destroy America from the inside out. Even though we've got Trump in power, there's still a lot that needs to be done on the local level to like mitigate these problems. And so right now, I mean, there's so many different issues, right? Like we're still dealing with mass immigration. And I don't know, you and I, well, all of us really, all three of us are immigrants in our own ways, like whether it's, us going to the States or George, you coming out to Europe. But there's two different types of immigration, right? There's like the positive legal stuff that contributes to the economy, contributes to culture. And then there's the negative illegal stuff that is all to do with human trafficking and drug trafficking and the criminal element, again, which just destroys a civilization. Like it's what Stalin did to basically unsettle and claim power over every single piece of territory that he wanted. He would just pump places full of immigrants, unsettle the population, and then swoop in and take his own power. And so, while we're dealing with the sort of compounding issue of homelessness, we've also got all of these other problems that have been able to infiltrate at the same time. And it's scary, guys. Like, I know you guys go back to LA. It's still pretty scary. And I hear you're dealing with a lot of these issues in Milan too.
Oh, yes, exactly. I mean, like we were talking about that. You are from UK. We both have been in the UK, and you have different situation there. But here, conservative Italy with Giorgia Meloni in power right now, you wouldn't expect to be afraid simply to step out of your train in the station of Milan, and people get stabbed daily for your headphones, like simple headphones. Recently, a 19-year-old has been killed just to steal headphones without even guessing. So we're importing the worst of the worst. And I didn't see it coming in my country, Italy. But when it comes to LA, and we were already talking about the problem with homeless people, and now it's getting worse. Can you believe Gavin Newsom is now considering to run for president 2028? I mean, this is just a joke.
It's just a joke. It's like we're all laughing about it, but it's kind of terrifying to think that he is the front runner, right? And I just can't. I mean, I can't imagine anything worse for America, like anything more dangerous than allowing someone like Gavin Newsom, who's, yeah, completely destroyed every major city in California, through inaction as much as his own sort of like taking stupid woke action within his policies. The fact that he is the front runner of the Democratic Party just shows how far that side of the political spectrum has fallen. And yeah, it is like that really shocks me actually about Milan. Like the last time I was there, I think was 2018. And, like everywhere, like whether it's Barcelona, London, well, London's like different now as well. I'm sure Barcelona is the same, but even just 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, oh my God, it makes me feel old. 7 years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
I
I don't like
know.
that.
I
I
was
said,
just
oh,
like,
10 years ago? Yeah. Oh my God.
it's crazy. Like, it's so insane how quickly that time has gone. But it is, 7 years ago, visiting these cities, yeah, you've got to be a little bit careful of like pickpockets. You've got to be a little bit careful of, just everyday street crime. But the extent to which it's gotten and the sort of direct correlation between that and illegal immigration is just insane. Like, I don't even. So, what is Georgia Maloney like? What is she doing to kind of quell this issue, or is she dealing with the same kind of issues as Trump, where it's all these local level politicians who are just letting everything fall apart?
Oh, well, yeah, you had, you visit Italy now for 7 years, and you also see it changing. I think Giorgia Meloni is tied up to the rules of European Union. That's why you guys exited.
Yes.
And that's, I don't know if it benefited, it was too late, but I think she doesn't really have a choice.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about the UK because, like Simona just said, you had Brexit. So I thought Brexit was about sovereignty, controlling your borders, revitalizing that strong British identity, trying to restore some of, the bygone era of, the UK, as a global power. But it seems that illegal immigration or just immigration in the UK is worse than ever, and that like the society in the UK is more destabilized than ever. So am I right, or is that social media? Is there some truth behind that? What's the truth? What's the real situation right now in the UK when it comes to immigration and the British culture?
So Brexit, here's the crazy part, right? And this is kind of blows my mind to even think about it. And I'm so glad you asked that question, George, like, because I think if you hadn't, I wouldn't have evolved my thinking just in this moment. But when Brexit first happened, I was totally against it because you guys remember what Europe used to be like. I mean, yes, we had issues. Yes, there were some limitations. I think more socially, like my biggest issue with Britain, other than the weather being terrible, my biggest issue with Britain was this sort of normalized culture of like, if you have dreams and aspirations outside of the norm, you're not going to have a whole lot of friends. And, in my experience, none of my friends, none of my family were really particularly supportive of me in terms of like what I wanted to do with my life. So that's why as soon as I finished university, I was like, well, let's go see. I was like torn between moving to the States or moving to Hong Kong because I loved Los Angeles. I loved California. I didn't love Los Angeles at the time, which is crazy now to think because I do now. And then China took over Hong Kong. So I was like, okay, I don't want to go anywhere near that. And then I suddenly started getting offered all of this work in Los Angeles. So I was like, got my first visa, was out of there. So I haven't lived there in a long time. But when I was living there and being anti-Brexit came more from issues with like freedom of movement. I loved that I could literally just like grab my driver's license or grab my passport, whatever, and just like, nip off to, I don't know, like alkadiki for the weekend. Like, let's go to Split in Croatia and just, go grab like a nice meal. Or, you could travel so easily. It was so freeing. We were worried about like visas coming into play and all this kind of stuff. But now I realize, had we kept that, conservative government in power, America and Britain would basically be the same country, and Britain would be a whole lot better off for it. Because we've always had immigration in the UK. Both my schools that I went to, my primary school and my secondary school, a lot of immigrants, a lot of people from the Middle East, a lot of Indian immigrants, usually second generation, third generation. Obviously Britain owned India for the longest time. So a lot of people came over, even just like from the Raj. Their families just stayed, but they were all the kids who went on to become like doctors, as much as they kind of like integrated into normal society, to the point where all the immigrants that I was in school with, we didn't differentiate by our race. We differentiated by like what football and rugby teams we favored and the music that we listened to. Like race never came into it. And so
right, that's a really good point you're making, right? I always told George, sorry to interrupt you, but I really felt you hit the spot there, because we really don't have this background, this cultural background, this racial background in Europe. Everything is so natural, coexistence is so natural. Even in the same country, you can have people looking completely differently. And I think is also an example of it, right? It was not an impediment to all this access that many people had in the first place. But in America, this is very polarizing. It's a completely different story.
It's very different. It was like, I don't know if it was like a culture shock for you, but when I first moved to LA, like my first night in LA, I didn't realize I was the only white person. Like my friend was shooting a movie. I went and just hung out because I was writing about a bunch of the different actors in the movie. And my friend pointed out to me, he was like, you realize you're the only white person in here? And I'm like, well, no, I didn't realize that, because of the way that we're raised in Europe, or we were back in the 90s. Like, we don't see things like that. Like, I wouldn't have picked up on it unless you had pointed it out to me. And then, like you live here for 10 years and you realize that there are so many, it's like they say, I might butcher this, but I think they say it's a stew pot, not a melting pot. Like everyone's in here together. And even though we have like wealth and class differences, like definitely the racial sort of segregation is far more cultural in America than it is or was in Europe, at least when I was growing up. But it was like a total culture shock. But now, like going back to your original question, George, I don't know what the heck is going on in Britain. Like that place is just going down the toilet. Because like I talk to my friends and they're like, yeah, it's a bit worrying. Like, I don't really want to say anything that might be construed as me being racist or like, anti-immigration. And it's like, well, you can be anti-immigration if the immigrants that you're anti are, like the rape gangs thing is absolutely real. I think that the sort of ignorance of British politicians towards the threats against women are being completely ignored. But to be honest with you, like women's rights and the threats against women and like the complete ignorance of like sexual assault of women has actually been pretty culturally normal in the UK forever. Like I've had friends who've been brutally attacked and they were, this was well before immigration, and they were all basically told like, get over it. So I think that is actually more part of British culture than people realize. Like, I think a lot of immigrants are really taking advantage of what was already a pre-existing, completely unspoken of, except for within sort of safe spaces for women. I think that, like, I don't know if you guys saw today this thing, the creator of Father Ted, one of the most like famous comedy shows of all time, was arrested at Heathrow Airport for writing like 3 jokes on Twitter about trannies. And it's like, as soon as I told my husband about it, his first words were like, we're in the process of, I'm going from my O1 to a green card. And then I don't know how long it takes. I think it's like 3 years from getting like being married, getting a green card to getting citizenship. He was like, yeah, we're not going back
legal
there.
way, Kay, is gonna take forever. The legal way is very long.
I mean, I don't mind. I'd rather
Just cross
wait
the border,
here.
just go to Mexico and cross the border.
I would rather wait though and like do everything the legal way and just not go back. Like I was like, we're not going to Britain until I know that I won't get arrested for the stuff I've said on social media. Like that is insane. Like that is absolutely insane to me. So I think culturally they're just destroying themselves from the inside out. And like the level of replacement, like so many of my friends are only children. Like so many of my British friends are either only children or one of two, at the most one of three. I think I can think of like two families that have more than, or just like three children. And then you have these immigrant families coming in with anywhere from like 3 to 5 to 6 children. Again, the social science, like the math there, just maths. Like you keep everyone in for that amount of time. Britain, as you know, the culture has been for the last 2000 plus years, like since the Romans settled there. Literally, that's how long we're talking. Like that's gone. Like that's gone. And I said to Pags a couple of weeks ago, I was like, if all the terrorists in Britain stood up right now and went to war, they would win. Because you're living in the most dulled down culture of people who think it's wrong to defend who they are, and those who do stand up and defend who they are thrown in prison. And it's just tragic. Like, I mean, it's just a complete 180 from what Brexit was supposed to be on a cultural level. And part of me actually blames a lot of these conservative politicians for just like giving up, like cashing out and just disappearing. So, you know, it's as much the general public's fault as it is the people who are just sitting there doing nothing. Yeah, it's really quite sad actually. I'm really glad that I don't really have a need to go back there anytime soon. Yeah.
Okay, well, just a quick follow-up. So what's the end game then of all this? Like what's the end game of why people are being told not to defend women or to be proud to be British and to allow people to be raped and to just what's going on? Who's pulling the strings and what do you think is really going on?
So I have 3 theories on this, and I'm so interested to get your take on this. Okay, so the 3 biggest threats I think right now to Europe, not just Britain, but like Europe as a whole, like European culture, are Russia, China, and Islamic fundamentalists. So Islamic fundamentalists and China are kind of pretty similar in their motives. They just want the caliphate or they just want everyone to be Han Chinese. That's it. So when you look at China coming into, you know, Africa and getting all these African nations into debt, mostly the countries that Britain just gave up and didn't want to run anymore, that kind of freaks me out a little bit. And especially since they're a nation that could flatten Europe overnight with the weapons arsenal that they have. So I think China's definitely trying to make a move, but they're being super stealthy about it because China doesn't care. They'll take 1,000 years for the whole world to be Han Chinese. They don't need this to happen overnight. But then with the Islamic Caliphate, you've got allegedly Hamza bin Laden, who's basically taken every single Islamic terror group, bunched them all under one regime, which is basically his regime. And unlike his father, who was kind of like China and was like, I don't really care how long it takes for this thing to come to fruition, might not be my lifetime. This kid wants it. If all the intelligence is correct, this kid wants it in his lifetime. So I think a lot of it could be China orchestrating the mass migration of Islam into these different countries, whether it's from you know, traditionally Arab states or whether it's from, you know, African states. These people are just sort of flooding the continent, and that's, you know, straight out of Stalin's playbook. Like I said, like that was his freaking party trick, was to flood a country or flood a region with people who weren't from there, who refused to assimilate culturally, who eventually unsettled the sort of sociology to the point where Stalin could just step in, choose whoever the new leader was by proxy, and then run the country by proxy. And so where I see Russia playing into this is either through a complete and total just like let them kill and eat themselves. We'll swoop in and take what we want when those guys are done, which would be probably like the smartest move on Russia's part. But it also kind of then puts these three cultural superpowers against each other. And there's like this one line that everyone says, like, oh, China's not going to do that. China's not going to unsettle Europe and America because, you know, China needs us financially. No, they don't. China doesn't care. Like, if half of China starves, the Chinese leadership fundamentally don't care. They'll go and put people places they need to put them. They don't need us. They don't live the same way as us. They don't need all of the same stuff as us. They can live like absolute paupers and allow their population to live like absolute paupers if it goes towards that end goal. And so I think that you've got a lot of really stupid people who went to a lot of very posh schools in charge of a country that they don't really care about because ultimately they know that they're just going to like bugger off and live somewhere like Saint-Tropez, or they're going to go move to, you know, Liechtenstein or somewhere and just disappear, Canada even, you know. Yeah. So you've got people who only care about their wealth, basically fighting or not fighting enemies on three fronts who could destabilize and completely destroy their nation within a generation. And I don't know what the end goal is, but my perspective is one of these three is going to make a bold move at some point soon. And selfishly, I hope it's Russia and not is like the Islamic fundamentalists, because we've already seen what they're capable of. And I don't think Europe wins that kind of guerrilla warfare, unfortunately. I mean, we didn't win in Afghanistan either, right? So like, how can we expect to win on our own fronts? We don't even have armed citizens in Europe. So I know that sounds really dark and miserable, and I hope it doesn't come to that. But that's kind of what I'm seeing. So we really do need just strong leaders to stand up and do what Trump's doing. I think that's the thing. But you guys tell me if I'm completely off base. You live there, you know more than me.
Either of these three scenarios are totally likely. But what's really is the game changer here is Donald Trump approach to global policies. Is actually playing chess with all these players. We believe is going the next move. We can predict him. Actually, his old policy is about unpredictability. And I think he's understand his game is not just a deal maker. He sees in even in wars, it's sad to say, but he sees in wars deals opportunities. But it's solving a problems attitude that eventually will lead United States balancing all these geopolitical games. In the end, he is very capable to intercept those games and play chess and win. That's what I see in Donald Trump. That's why sometimes he's misunderstood, and sometimes people fear his, or even his own MAGA crowd has been destabilized by this tactic, I believe. But I think that's real. The game changer here is Donald Trump. It's like the wild card. People don't know how it's going to move next.
What is the kind of perception of Trump in Europe, like by sort of like the everyday person? Because most of the time on Twitter, I see people like hate him, but then I've started to see like little videos will pop up and be like, no, we actually like Trump. I had a bunch of friends from like my primary school, like elementary school, reach out and be like, yo, we really like Trump. Like, how did you move to America again? And so that gives me some hope, but like again, the sort of the masses, I don't know what the perception is.
What do you think?
I think really people are indoctrinated to believe the mainstream media, but the moment they're out of this hypnosis and they look at the real person and what is doing, they're deeply fascinated with them. So when they go out of the script, oh yes, it's so cool. I'd love to have someone who treat my country as something that important, you know. And that's what Meloni is trying to emulate in Italy, trying to be a mini Trump, but of course she's not. I mean, like I love her, I like her. I think she's She has incredible qualities, but she's not Donald Trump. Donald Trump is, I think, one of a kind. And I don't like people who speaks like fans. I'm not joining a fan club. I am genuinely appreciating his policies. And sometimes I disagree with what he does as well. But overall, I think everyone recognizes that he's successful in everything he does, not only for his enterprises and his family and everything else, but on the global stage, he already proves in the first midterm what he's capable of. And that's actually the question I wanted to make to you both. What do you really think about, if you had to make an assessment of this first midterm, which are the biggest achievements and what are the biggest fallouts?
Ooh.
Start with you.
George, you go first. No, you go first. I want to steal your answers. I feel like yours are going to be way better than mine.
I'm going to be short and sweet. It's really about restoring the American identity, much more so than anything else. I always say it, the economy doesn't really matter at the end of the day. You're making $2,000 to $4,000 more. It's about restoring sovereignty versus globalism. It's about restoring the national identity versus replacing it with something foreign or imported or something that just does not belong. America is a very unique country. It always has been since its founding. It's something, it's that shining city on a hill that no other country around the world can really emulate. So I think that was all slowly but maturely, especially with Obama and then with Biden, they were really trying to usher in this new age in the United States with an open border, shifting demographics, the replacement theory that you mentioned earlier that's going on in Britain, changing the economic policies to be more socialist versus capitalistic. And so he's restoring that. And obviously for me, that's the most important success of his, even more so than the war stuff that he's trying to prevent, the border, the tariffs, the tax policies. That for me is the biggest achievement that any president, I think, or any leader around the world should be focusing on first and foremost. And then the rest, of course, has been incredible, but that has really been the most important victory of his so far.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna steal that answer because I completely agree. And I think there's like, other than a few friends I have that probably bought property at the wrong time during COVID, like so many people bought those like overpriced, inflated homes, and are now stuck underwater on mortgages, which again, oh, wonderful Biden policies. Like, doesn't that presidency feel like a fever dream? I can't believe it was real. But you know, other than a couple of friends that are stuck in that situation that I think they'll get out of in time, and it's all stuck in beautiful homes, so it's not like, you know, they can complain about that. But I think everyone that certainly out here in like real America, rural America, there seems to be more hope and sort of this like sense of stability. Like everyone I know is starting families. Everyone I know is like really leaning into what could be that really prosperous future, maintaining that American culture. And, you know, I know that the sort of general hope is, you know, you see Gavin Newsom tweeting all this crap on social media, but I don't think anyone who has lived under him or has ever visited California is like realistically going to vote for him. I think we're probably going to see, I pray we're going to see Vance Rubio or Vance someone ticket in 2028, and we can really just like keep that ball rolling. But I think, yeah, and it's so funny you bring up the war stuff. Like that's one of my favorite lines to feed my family when they start going on about Trump. I'm like, well, he's the anti-war president. Like he hasn't started any new wars, and that's pretty cool as far as I'm concerned. And he's even tried to, you know, quell the wars that are actually going on. Like I think we all realize that Afghanistan wouldn't have happened in the way that it did had he won in 2020. But I'd also worry where we would be now without him having won. And so, you know, what you said about like not being like a fan, like to fangirl out. I was like a liberal socialist, thought Bernie Sanders had good ideas like 10 years ago when I first moved to the States. And it wasn't until that first Trump presidency and just sitting and listening did I realize how wrong I was. Yeah. And so, yeah, like he has enough good ideas and brings in enough of the right people to I don't know, yeah, like give America that hope, that faith, that freedom that it was founded upon, and maintaining that. Because I think it's hard for the rest of the world to realize like how close we came to losing it.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people go on about like the Jeffrey Epstein thing, but I think anyone who sort of studied the undercurrent of like what might really be going on with that in terms of Epstein potentially having been an intelligence officer, or at least, you know, involved in intelligence operations, like you've got to kind of go and think that level higher and realize that, like, I think if Trump actually leaned into talking about that right now, a lot of people would be dead. And it's like, okay, he did a horrible thing. It's hopefully not happening anymore. But yeah, that is actually something. Like when he first came out and said, like, can we just let this go? I was like, dude, no, like we want to know the truth. And then you lean into what actually may have been going on. And it's like, no, okay, I don't want to know. Never mind. Yep, okay, we'll leave that. Cool, whatever. Everyone's got their settlements. It was an awful thing. No one's agreeing it was okay. But it's probably good that we move on and focus on real issues now. Just something I never thought that I would say out loud. But I don't know, that's what great leadership does, is, you know, it focuses on what needs to happen to secure us all and secure futures for our families, not what's best for them. So I like it. I'm here for it. I think he's, yeah.
I totally agree. And if I can call out some real change that will be a legacy of his administration, is accountability. Is finally him and Tulsi Gabbard are finally investigating the investigators of the Russia hoax and vindicating, not simply clearing names and talking about George and Flynn and Stone and myself as a Russian spy, if you want to talk about it. It was ridiculously insane. But you know, it's about really restoring people trust in institutions, because it's much bigger than the people involved.
Yeah.
If this can happen again, this is gonna be a cancer in the system of the United States of America. So for me, seeing there is an active investigation, criminal investigation into Obama's now and his allies, which is huge. Something that probably I didn't even dream coming back in time when I was putting spies, right? According to the insanity. But you know, that's insane. That's like a Hollywood script with the ugly.
It is. Do you know what though? You should totally write that script, and like when it's all like said and done, like have that script ready to go, because I would go out and watch that movie, because I think we all know it's going to come out on your guys' side, and I love that. And you know, go get like the funding. I'll chip in. I'll come on as a producer. It's just like the most insane story. I'm so sorry that you were put through that. And yeah, I know that God is going to bring you out on the other side, and there's going to be total vindication. And I think accountability, like I want to steal that answer as well, because it's the Russia hoax. It's I think the COVID shot, like I think that's going to be the next big one as well. Because I don't know about you guys, but like I have a few friends that work in the sort of medical field who, well, like with Dr. Drew, more on the ground when all that stuff sort of coming out about long COVID and the relation to the COVID vaccine injuries. And you know, they're estimating like anywhere upwards of like 10 to 20 million Americans may have been injured by this thing in some way, shape, or form. So I pray for accountability and the sort of freedom to just go into these institutions and say, hey guys, let's actually investigate what went wrong here and try and solve it. And don't even get me started on ancient archaeology, because the fact that he's going to go audit the Smithsonian, like the nerd in me is like, oh my gosh, yes, because I want to know the truth of our past. Like, do the Vatican catacombs next. I think we're living through a really incredible moment in history that I hope future generations will look back on and say thank you for going through that, because it's the reason we can be here today. Like I think having that kind of leadership and fortitude is what's going to mitigate and actually potentially stop all that stuff that I kind of talked about earlier with China, with Islam, like the fundamentalists, and with Russia. Because I don't know, Donald Trump as tough as he is as a negotiator and as a businessman, I mean, he would go out and flatten Moscow if they really did anything to threaten the West's sovereignty.
Yeah.
But then I don't know, do people even like what is the vibe on Ukraine these days? Like we don't even hear anything about it out here anymore. Like at all, ever.
Yeah.
Okay, I got one last question for you about this whole accountability situation. What does accountability look like to Kay Smith? From Fauci to Obamagate to the open border to the trafficking. I mean, all the Epstein that you talked about. I mean, it's been one scandal after another politically. I don't think we've ever had so many successive political scandals in history that have just really taken so much attention and resources from the Department of Justice, from people's interests. So what does it really look like for these series of political events? What does that look like to you?
That's a great question as well. I think as far as COVID goes, yes, let's remove Fauci's medical license. Let's stop him from ever practicing again. If we go and we get, well, we already have conclusive evidence that hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people were injured by the COVID vax. We just need a broad scale acknowledgement of that. And I hope that all of those people get the healthcare that they need. And I hope that they all go after Fauci civilly. And I hope they go after everyone who forced the vaccine on people civilly. And I hope that that kind of ends medical tyranny and the sort of practice of medical tyranny. I think as far as Epstein goes, I don't think we're going to get the answers to, honestly, I don't think we're going to get the answers to any of that until pretty much everyone involved in it is dead. And that is purely because there is an intelligence force there that is related to our allies and allies who need us. And to be honest with you, allies who are going out and protecting us right now. So it's a knife's edge on where that goes. I really don't know. But I think practically speaking, we're not going to get accountability until anyone and everyone involved is long gone, unfortunately. Russia, whatever you guys want. Whatever you guys want from their hopes, that's accountability to me. Because I'm here to champion my friends and the people who were actually hurt by this. So, I'll stand behind you guys with whatever you want. So I can't answer that one. I can just support. But all of these different scandals like Obama, Hillary, the social scientist in me just wants to be able to sit down and have a conversation with my very liberal family and have them sit down with me and have that conversation, because that's like pulling teeth to begin with, and have them say, oh my gosh, you were right. We were misled. The media is propaganda for the most part. And I can't believe we sat and let that happen for as long as we did. Because I think if we can get to that point, stripping these people of the power that they've claimed over our lives is going to be success and accountability and a long-term net positive. So as much as I'd like to see all these people behind bars, I'd be just as happy seeing them have zero relevance to anyone's lives, because that's what they want, right? So you just take away that power that way. Like, bye, Felicia, that kind of vibe. That's kind of where I'm at.
Totally agree with you.
Couldn't agree more about that, Kay. I know we are taking a lot of your time. I will stay here listening to you for hours. But just last question, because I think you have so many points and so many interesting for our audience to follow. Where people can find you?
Oh, wow. Yeah, no. So if you just look me up on social media, it's Kay Smithe, SMYTHE, Hill, HILL. So Kay Smithe Hill or Kay Smithe. If you Google me, you'll find me. So Twitter's probably the main one. I don't really use Instagram unless someone else is posting something I can collaborate with, which I need to get better at.
I will tag you.
Oh, thank you. Yes, please do, because I will. I'll get the notification and I will post it. So
let's reactivate it.
Yes, I will. Oh gosh. But no, Twitter's the best usually. And thank you guys so much for having me. I could sit and talk with you guys all day. I really appreciate it. This was so much fun.
Thank you. Let's meet soon somewhere in the
yes,
States.
Please. Would love that.
Have you on. Thank you, Kay.
Thanks
again. Thank you.